This is Voices from the Front Lines of CMMC Compliance, where we explore key steps in the CMMC journey, straight from the professionals guiding U.S. defense contractors through it every day. In our previous episodes, we shared some insight on starting the journey to CMMC. We also took a deeper dive into the gap analysis process, which comes pretty early on. Today, we're going to take a look at how we move from the findings in that gap analysis to the fixes, so prioritizing POA&M items, implementing technical and policy remediation, and coordinating across teams. The episode features stories of real client transformations and lessons learned and things in that regard. We are joined again by Laura Spencer, a member of the advisory services team here at Systems Engineering. Hello, Laura.
Hello, Mike.
Welcome back. So the gap analysis has been performed, findings have been documented, delivered to the organization. We have this in our hands now. We've worked with a consultant, either in-house or someone like yourself or someone on your team. So once these gaps are found, now the work begins. The old expression comes to mind, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, and that can be overwhelming and probably the hardest one to take. What's the first thing or things that an organization should do once that gap analysis is delivered?
Well, digesting the results and beginning to work on triaging of priorities and painting the picture for a roadmap. Those are the things that would come next. And you may have different reasons to focus on one area or another, but taking the time to determine that path is what you would want to focus on now. And you may do that together with your internal task force and under the guidance of a consultant. As I mentioned, triaging and thinking about remediation, it should be done carefully. You might already have existing projects underway. You might be doing different migrations. You could be bringing on new personnel or shifting things around. We really do try to prioritize those remediation tasks and leverage what you might already have in place on your roadmap. Very much depends on the outcome, of course, of the gap analysis and how many findings you have.
Right, that makes sense. So I guess that calls to mind, in your experience so far, are there common types of remediation challenges that you might see? Is it technical? Is it procedural? Is it both? Does it vary? Are there some trends and consistencies that you often see?
I think that challenge-wise, it's planning and resourcing that can really help you confront challenges. Of course, if you don't have policies and procedures in place and you're starting from scratch, there's benefits to that and disadvantages, of course. What I find, though, to be one of the bigger challenges does have to do with the procedural level, right? Because nowadays there is so much guidance out there. I think the ecosystem has grown a lot in terms of information sharing and interpretations. There was a time in the past where I found clients and colleagues in the ecosystem were feeling like, how is a C3PAO going to assess this and review this? And it almost felt like people were guarding this information that they had about what's the right way to do something, what's going to pass. Whereas, now C3PAOs and assessors and ecosystem members are all very open about interpretations and generally accepted guidance, right? So that makes it easy to determine proper policies, determine appropriate technical configurations. You can work with a client on that and see that picture pretty easily. But the how something is done, the procedures that you mentioned, that's the hard part because it could vary based on the organization and answering, well, who's going to do that? Right. And how often? And you've really got to generate evidence that it's being done because that's essentially your program. It's easy for me to say, we will review user access. Fine, that's a policy.
Right.
But who's doing it and how? So that's where I see a big challenge is procedures.
Right. What if I'm a smaller organization and just maybe don't have the resources available to me in my organization to help make these changes?
Well, we're in the age of automation. So wherever you can rely on a system perhaps to do some of that ongoing reporting or detecting or monitoring for you, that's great.
Yeah.
And organizations use those tools as much as they can, and when they're permitted to do so, that they're compliant. Third-party assistance comes into play. So would you be able to outsource something? And again, is that appropriate to do so? Is that going to work for you? And then being clever and creative with, what can we do to be secure, be compliant, but to think carefully, obviously, that, the same thing that an enterprise-wide organization may do with thousands of individuals isn't going to look the same as a mom and pop shop of 5-6 personnel.
Right.
So the guidance in CMMC isn't prescriptive to that level to say it has to be absolutely this one way and only this one way.
Mm-hmm.
There is flexibility.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
So how do you go about prioritizing the POA&M items, like plan of action? How do you prioritize that stuff?
There's a lot of tactics and techniques out there in the field. You could go ahead and go score chasing. There is a score attached to each of these control areas. You could divide them up into different categories and say, well, these ones depend on policies, written policies. These depend on technical configurations. And these are more in the realm of procedures and physical security measures, maybe more administrative type tasks. So it does turn out usually to be a mixture of priorities, again, depending on where is the customer in their journey today. What's their task force like and their budget like? And you may do several things at once. You may have folks focusing on policy, and you may have others taking on some of those tactical things on the ground, like physical security, visitor logs, and such. So you can take different approaches. I think I've said it a few times already. It's got to fit with the organization's needs, planning out the strategy and working with them on what's being done when is key.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you work with organizations to help sort of create that prioritized list? I can imagine it's pretty overwhelming. Where do we even start? What's the first most important thing we need to do?
It certainly is. And it definitely challenges you to your project management skills.
Right.
Cybersecurity consultants and compliance folks and CCPs and CCAs, we're not all necessarily trained to be project managers. So I think that utilizing good tools, good GRC tools, that's a common outcome. And working closely with your client, at Systems Engineering, we are pretty flexible. We have project management resources here that sometimes customers utilize. Other times they have their own project management staff. And then often you want to have regular check-ins. Those are key, right? And while some of this might seem like a burden or, as you said, overwhelming, having a cadence of getting together and having a process makes that more manageable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess, and your answer might sort of speak to this next question, but I'll ask anyway. How do you keep the work on track, right? There's sort of a general timeline. We don't want this to go on forever. How do you keep the remediation work on track across both internal and external stakeholders?
Just what we've said there, those regular check-ins, and being flexible, I suppose. That's where that initial part about the right resources from a couple of talks ago that we had, you should expect there's going to be times where there's low-hanging fruit on your POA&M, stuff that feels good and is easy to take care of, by policy or simple adjustments. And then there will be things that didn't go the way you thought they would. And you leave a margin of error and some extra time. Maybe you need to go back. So those regular check-ins are so important to see how things are tracking and leave space for stakeholders, internal and external, to say, this is how this thing is going. I need more resources, or I need further input. Expect that those are going to be a part of the process. It's not always the exact plan that you developed from the start. Sometimes you're making adjustments or shifting needs as you go along this journey.
Any other thoughts, tips, feedback, or insight that you have based on your experience that we can share before we break for today?
Like I said, I think that leveraging tools that are available out there, whether it's through a third party that you're working with, a consultant, or you're going it alone, find a tool that works for you that can help you track this stuff. There are so many out there that are good, and they're only, getting better to the needs of the CMMC program. And keep your stakeholders close. Keep that task force on top of things. If you're leading that work, if you are the point of contact, it can be frustrating. It can be a burden, to feel like you are looking after everyone involved. But keep them in attendance and the regular cadence going, because it's so easy for this to fall off and not be someone's first priority. There's so much education that's still going on around why is this important. So, good coordination is really going to help. And just to look after those individuals who are managing that, give them the extra time. It's extra work for all of us sometimes on top of what we're already doing.
Yep.
It's very important, and it takes time to get through. So
perfect. I mean, that's the one benefit to being in this age, right, where we have these tools and these automation tools available to us. Utilize them, especially if you don't have, the sort of manpower, so to speak, to do all the jobs or all the work manually. So
certainly.
Yeah, great. Laura, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, great conversation. There's more to come. Again, please watch the other episodes that we've done. We'll have more coming your way soon. We also have an area on our website, systemsengineering.com, that's dedicated to CMMC resources. And we will see you next time on Voices from the Front Lines of CMMC.